What's going on YouTube? It's Teej, back again with another video, and today we are beginning our season preview series. We did this last year, and we're going to do it yet again this season as we get closer and closer to the NFL regular season getting underway. We're about a week away from Veterans being at training camp. That's super exciting stuff, at least as of me recording this, but hopefully you all enjoy today's video and the series as a whole, and if you do, be sure to hit that like button. It'll help me out a ton. If you're new around here and want to see more football content in your life, just hit that big red subscribe button. And of course, tell me what you think about the Arizona Cardinals down below in the comment section. That's where we begin this series. How many wins do you think they can get? Who are some X-Factor players that you think maybe could take this team to new heights? And what are some games you look forward to watching them play this upcoming season? For those who didn't watch this series last year, which figures to be a lot of new people, which is totally awesome. Welcome to the channel. But I'll just kind of run you through real quick. We'll talk about a win range, and this is tough. I'm trying to limit myself a little bit more here, especially with a team like the Cardinals, where I could see this kind of going in two different extremes. Then I'll include my projected win total based off of our way too early division picks that, that series is now concluded. Go check that out if you missed it. And then realistic goal and a reach goal, and that's pretty simple. Realistic is something I think they can accomplish or have accomplished in years past. And then a reach goal is kind of like your reach college, your reach job. You apply to it thinking you might not necessarily get in or get that job, but you do it anyways just because who knows. And then X factors. This is going to be something I have to preface, and I'll probably do it again and again. This really irritated some people last year. For the Cardinals, as an example, Kyler Murray is a stud. DeAndre Hopkins is a stud. J.J. Watt, when he's healthy, is a stud. There's no question about what that's going to be. My X factors, and the reason I pick these players is because maybe they take a step forward, or maybe they hit the high side of variance, or maybe they're able to put together for a full 17 games. And that takes this team, in this case, the Cardinals, to an area where they haven't been before. So, so maybe in this case, we'll talk about Hollywood Brown later. Maybe he has a career season. Him and DeAndre Hopkins allow the Cardinals to win a playoff game, which they did not do last year. So I'm picking players that it could go one way or the other. If they hit, injuries or the low side of their variance, then maybe this team underperforms, but maybe they work out and they exceed expectations. This team overperforms, and the games to watch is pretty straightforward. That's simple enough. But let's jump into it. Win range 7 to 9 wins, and I am on the low side of that. Now I do want to include the caveat. I'm again trying not to be like 7 wins or they could win 13. But, hey, if Kyler Murray plays like an MVP and, this team figures out its consistency problem over the last couple of years, and, maybe that is the DeAndre Hopkins suspension, not having him until week 7. Maybe that does work out in this team's, advantage and makes them more balanced from year to end instead of a hot start and a cold finish. Maybe that's the reinforcements they need to prolong and have a strong 17-game schedule. So I could see this team certainly get into the 12-13 range if Kyler's playing like an MVP. They figure out how to play consistent, and Cliff Kingsbury is willing to change things up a little bit. But for right now, I'm projecting 7 wins, which is definitely a disappointment and will rub a lot of Cardinals fans the wrong way. Realistic goal, get back to playoffs where you were last year for a reason. And, reach goal at that point, win a playoff game, right? Take that next step forward, win that wild card game, or, maybe even get a bye. Maybe this team really does exceed my expectations, and, they're playing in the divisional round to start. Getting a playoff win would certainly go a long way, and it would, increase the stability and the perception to Cliff Kingsbury as a head coach of this team, and it would increase, his gravitas and just give him a stronger voice within that building. But it would also do wonders for Kyler Murray and his looming contract extension that we thought would get done here pretty soon, but hasn't yet. And then we'll get into the X factors, and I'll kind of dive into this a little bit more. So Hollywood Brown in the picture for a reason, right? And wasn't a trade I was crazy about on draft night, but then pretty soon after we hear about the DeAndre Hopkins suspension. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. That context kind of adds up. But even with Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins both on the field, Hollywood Brown is just an improvement over Christian Kirk, plain and simple. Now you're going to have to pay Hollywood Brown next year, but we're just focusing on this upcoming season. That's an upgrade over Christian Kirk. You bring back A.J. Green. We'll see what happens with Andy Isabella, but that 3, Green, Hopkins, when he's out there after his suspension, and Hollywood Brown, that's a really nice trio you have there, and guys who win in a variety of different ways. And, Hollywood Brown, especially that big playability and that downfield speed, and that chemistry he has with Kyler Murray, showcased by their time playing together at Oklahoma, that could be something that, kind of moves this team and moves the needle and changes your perception and takes this team from, hey, they're a good offense, they're a solid unit on that side of the football, to, hey, at any moment, this team could strike and score an 80-yard touchdown, kind of like what the Chiefs have long had with Tyreek Hill. Maybe Hollywood Brown kind of adds that dynamic because, Christian Kirk had some downfield ability and looked better playing from the slot, but Hollywood Brown just takes that to another level. So definitely a big-time X factor there, and especially those first 6 games. What does he look like as a 1 on a team that's not Baltimore, right? Because Baltimore, you could be the number one wide receiver, but that's a run-focused offense, right? That's not truly being the number one option. In Arizona, you're the number one wide receiver. They're going to throw it a lot. You're the number one guy. So how does Hollywood Brown handle that role? That will be a huge factor for this team this upcoming year. And then Zaven Collins, former first-round pick, could have gone Isaiah Simmons here. Collins and Simmons, both first-round picks, playing that inside linebacker spot, which to me personally was not exactly where I thought, especially considering Zaven Collins started gain weight before the NFL draft. It kind of made me think, okay, maybe he'll be a 3-4 edge rusher, which this team could certainly use. And maybe that is, once we get into training camp, something they decide to do with him after, losing Chandler Jones. He was somebody at Tulsa who had some pass rushing, expertise and looked pretty good on film doing it. But even last year, the little bit we did see, guy's got a nose for stopping the run. And, that duo in and of itself, Simmons as your safety turned linebacker, coverage specialist, let him read quarterback's eyes. Okay, that plays to his strengths and skill set. And then Zaven Collins, if he's your guy who's focused on stopping the run and getting behind the line of scrimmage and making plays, that kind of plays to his strengths. And shades of what the Bucs have with Devin White and Levante David, where their skill sets are, I don't want to say polarized, but their strengths match up with the other one's weakness and vice versa, to where it becomes a really dynamic duo. And maybe the Cardinals are able to implement something similar this upcoming year, but it will mean we see more Zaven Collins on the field and he'll have to take a step forward. And same thing for Isaiah Simmons. So either one of them could have been here on this X Factor list. And then corners, not named Byron Murphy. Byron Murphy's one of the best slot corners in football. Him and Kenny Moore are kind of these guys where you have to have the conversation as one of the better cornerbacks in football, but part of the argument working against them is that they live exclusively from the slot. But that being said, Byron Murphy was huge last year, playmaking machine, and if he continues to do that, that is a huge component of that Arizona defense. Him and Budda Baker are kind of the only secondary players I look at and I feel really comfortable having on the field. Everyone else is a question mark. Cornerbacks and honestly safeties kind of included, but definitely the cornerback is Marco Wilson going to take a step forward in year two. That remains to be seen. So once we get into camp, maybe this team even adds another veteran, right? They try to do that with Malcolm Butler, Malcolm Butler, I believe, last offseason. He ends up retiring. Now he's back. But adding maybe a veteran, a cap casualty or roster casualty once training camp's over and we're getting close to regular season, that could be in the mix. Or maybe they're active in talking with Joe Hayden. I don't know about that fit. I think he's probably better suited to play a lot more zone at his age. Pittsburgh, Buffalo, those teams kind of make more sense to me than Arizona. But this was a unit that struggled last year too. So I have to give a ton of credit to Arizona, what they did defensively last year, considering the limitations that I saw on paper with that depth chart and that starting lineup. I was like, this team's not going to be able to hang. They're going to give up 30 points a game with that secondary, and that just wasn't the case. And for the first half of the year, that was maybe the best defense in football. It was one of, if not the best unit on that side of the football last year. So there's no reason to think Arizona can't surprise me again this year. But again, just looking at names on paper, those cornerbacks outside of Byron Murphy are going to have to step up if this team's going to get to double-digit wins and get back to the playoffs. And then some games to watch before we close this one out. Week 5 against Philadelphia. I'm a guy who's pretty high on the Eagles this upcoming year, and these are two teams that could be battling for a wild card spot, especially if you're high on the Cowboys and you're high on the Rams potentially being, repeat division winners. Then it's the Cardinals, it's the Eagles, it's the Saints, maybe the Panthers now. Who knows? It's going to be the Wild West when it comes to that wild card race. And the Cardinals and the Eagles, whoever wins this game might have that tiebreaker, and it's a battle of birds too. But more importantly, they might have that tie-breaking rule to where one team maybe is the 5 and one team's the 6, or one's the 6, one's the 7, or one's in and one's out. It could really break down to something that simple. So that Week 5 matchup is one I'm very fascinated with. In Week 7 against New Orleans Saints, that's one Thursday Night Football. They're playing at home, and again, just like I talked about with the Eagles, this could be a battle for who's in and who's out when it comes to the wild card race, or seeding implications, who's 5, who's 7, et cetera, et cetera. But this is also the return of DeAndre Hopkins, so this will be obviously one with a lot of eyes on national television. What does that offense look like? What has it been to the first 6 weeks? And then how does that change with DeAndre Hopkins? Or is it more of the same? Did they get out to a hot start? Now you're just getting, an ultra, one of the best wide receivers in football to just kind of add into the mix and go on top of that. So what does that mean for this team? Week 7 is going to be a fascinating game to watch there between the Cards and the Saints. And Week 16 against Tampa Bay. Now, I'm feeling pretty confident that Tampa Bay is going to win the NFC South. But that being said, anything's possible. Maybe the Saints are better than I anticipated, and the Bucs and the Cardinals are fighting for a wild card spot. I don't really see it that way, but this is an opportunity, especially late in the year. This is going to be a nice barometer. Did the Cardinals do what they have done over the last couple of years? Did they get out to a hot start and finish cold? You always want to see teams getting progressively better, right? Like, think about it like Madden. You want to see that progression curve on the upward swing. Will this team be better by week 18 than it was week 1? The last couple of years, I mean, that wild card game against the Rams last year, kind of case in point. That was a really disappointing way for that team to end their season after being one of the best teams in the NFL at the beginning of last year, for the first half of the year, the first 10 weeks of last year. So that beginning to end measurement will be fascinating, but also this is a chance to get a huge win against one of the best teams in football, and that late season push, especially, let's say maybe this team is a game back of the Rams, or fighting for a division title, or fighting to get into the playoffs. This is a win where you take down the Bucs, week 17 and 18, confidence is sky high and morale's up, and momentum's just simply on your side. So that could be a huge game where if the Cardinals can pull off an upset, Sunday Night Football, prime time, games play close, you're at home, all that works in the favor of the Cardinals there. So they could steal one from Tampa and get some big momentum late in the year, and maybe that puts them back in the playoff conversation, puts them in the division, front runner spot in the NFC West. Who knows? Only time will tell that story, but that's going to do it for my season preview of the Arizona Cardinals. Tell me what you think about this team down below in the comment section. How many wins you think they get, some X factors and some games you're looking forward to watch them play this upcoming year. Love to have your thoughts, and I respond to just about every comment down in the comment section. So let's talk some football down below. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. It would help me and my channel out a ton. If you're new around here, want to see more football content in your life, just hit that big red subscribe button. That's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teej, and I'm signing off.